Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Today, the majority has brought forward a cruel, extreme, and unworkable piece of legislation, the so-called Secure the Border Act, which would wreck our economy, destroy the asylum system, criminalize visa overstays, send unaccompanied children back to dangerous situations, and jail children indefinitely. Once again, my Republican colleagues show us that they are not interested in finding real solutions to tough issues. This bill attempts to combine a variety of different bills, each one more cruel and heartless than the last, into one contradictory and overlapping mess. This bill has no chance of being enacted into law. Republican senators have expressed their opposition. It is nothing more than pure political theater. My Republican colleagues are trying to take us back to the failed, illegal, and immoral policies of the Trump administration. Former President Trump's radical, inhumane, and racist immigration actions weakened the U.S. economy, undermined our moral standing in the world, and did not make us any safer. While trampling on some of our most deeply held American values, his erratic approach also failed to stem the flow of migrants across our border. Let's be very clear about what this legislation would do. When taken together, this bill serves as a wholesale ban on asylum. No one would be able to seek asylum in the United States if they crossed between points of entry, or if they had or could have had even temporary status in a third country. We offered a variety of amendments to exempt the most vulnerable from some of these draconian requirements. This included those fleeing communist and totalitarian regimes and unaccompanied children. The majority was not even willing to exempt children under a year old. The one place where we were able to make some bipartisan headway was on the issue of E-Verify. E-Verify is an electronic employment eligibility verification system that began as a voluntary pilot program and is currently used by a small percentage of the nation's employers. This bill would make that system mandatory for all employers in the United States. Without providing other reforms, including any meaningful opportunity for undocumented workers to regularize their status, this title would damage the U.S. economy, harm American workers, and result in billions of dollars in lost government revenue. Mandatory E-Verify would decimate the agriculture industry, putting U.S. farms out of business, shipping millions of American jobs overseas, and increasing U.S. reliance on imported food. Mandatory E-Verify will result in hundreds of thousands of unfilled farm jobs and will leave unpicked crops rotting in the fields, as we saw in Georgia in 2011, when a mandatory E-Verify law in the state resulted in over 11,000 farm jobs going unfilled during the peak harvest season. That is why I have submitted an amendment to the Rules Committee which would strike the E-Verify title from this bill. This amendment gained bipartisan support in the Judiciary Committee, and I hope my colleagues will ensure it gets a vote on the House floor. These are just a few of the problems with this bill. I did not even have time to go into detail into how this bill strips all protections from unaccompanied children and requires all families who come to our border seeking protection to be detained indefinitely, or the extreme lengths to which it goes to narrow the eligibility grounds for asylum, or how this bill would severely restrict this and any future administration's ability to parole individuals into the United States, ending the current parole initiatives for Ukrainians fleeing Russia and certain military families. And I might add, ending the parole that has been enforced for Cuba since the Eisenhower administration. Immigration reform is a complicated problem that requires comprehensive solutions, and an enforcement-only strategy simply doesn't work. Democrats have put forward real proposals, and we stand ready to work with serious Republicans to pass meaningful solutions. Democrats take this complex humanitarian crisis seriously. Our proposals address the root causes of migration, improve border security, and create additional legal pathways for people to enter the United States lawfully. But Republicans have chosen a narrow path that imposes extreme pain and hardship on the most vulnerable people while doing nothing to actually solve the problem. I encourage my colleagues to oppose this wrong-headed bill They ask the majority to go back to the drawing board. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.